Hey there, everybody. It's Mark Mack back with another live episode, LinkedIn Live of the Hump. What's today? What is today?
Wednesday.
Jen, what is today? It's Hump Day! And I'm your host and lead camelman, Mark Mack, coming at you once again. Thank you very much for you guys joining the show today. Today is March 5th. March is Women's History Month. I think there's also an International Women's Day. I forget which day that is, but we'll learn about that in a second. And I'm celebrating the entire month this month. Women coming on the show, women in sales. My first guest is a woman in sales, Jennifer Frost, CEO of Cold Calling Unlimited. And she's here to chop it up with me about women in sales and how they're better than men in sales. No, I'm just joking, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I just wanted to welcome everybody tuning in to listen to us chat it up today. Jen, how's it going? What's going on?
It's Wednesday, and it's actually really nice and sunny out here. I'm in Canada, and you guys most of you think it's cold, but I'm in the sunny Okanagan. So there's a window right there. It's bright. It's sunshine in. Yeah.
Now that's like in what is that? Like the Pacific West, yeah. British Columbia. Yeah. Okay. Like how far are you from like Vancouver or whatever?
About 4-hour drive.
Oh, east or west of you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're inland more. Okay. Awesome. Well, Jen, I give all my guests just a couple of minutes to kind of introduce themselves, where they're from, a little bit about your family, maybe a little bit about how you got into Cold Calling Unlimited and starting that and where you're at today.
Sure. So, my name is Jennifer. I'm the CEO of Cold Calling Unlimited. And I contract myself out to companies worldwide that are looking for someone to cold call a list for them. And what's been interesting lately is I've been talking to a couple of companies like myself that are in the UK, and they're looking to partner with me because of the time difference in cold calling. So it's been actually really neat to be able. I'm talking to someone at 7 a.m. my time, and it's like 10 o'clock their time.
Yeah.
They're going to bed and I'm just getting up. So
Sure.
So it's been pretty cool. I have 2 teenage kids, a daughter who's 14, who thinks she's 21. Yeah. And then I have a 16-year-old son. His name's Logan, and he has Down syndrome. So when he was born, he was diagnosed with Down syndrome. We didn't know. We did not know. It was a surprise. And the thing is that ever since he's been born, it's been 16 years now, the change in empathy and my patience has just, it's different. It changes your life dramatically when you have a kid with special needs. But he's a rock star, and he has red hair.
Wow.
Personality. Wow. He's a ham. Every time we go out somewhere, he's just hamming it up. Yeah.
Well, that's, I can't relate, obviously. I'm lucky, one of the lucky ones that my son was born healthy and has continued to be, although he could probably stand to gain a few pounds. But of course, his father was very thin when I was a kid as well, high metabolism. Nice. But yeah, no, I am, my wife is mental health therapist for many, many years, and spent a lot of time with kids who are on the spectrum, serious, either like almost non-functional, autistic versus, some that are a little highly functional, but a lot of behavioral problems. So special needs in general, I wouldn't compare it to Down syndrome, of course, but great to hear that. Yeah, they can live normal lives, in most cases.
He's amazing. And like I said, I talk about him all the time. My poor daughter doesn't get very much attention, but
but I can only imagine the fortitude that it's created in you, the wherewithal, just just to be able to mentally stay with it. I mean, I would imagine there's some parents out there who have ultimately they have this special needs kid and they have to give him away, or have to put him in a state home or something like that, or for that matter, don't want to take care of him and do that as a matter of purpose, as opposed to choosing to take on the responsibility, which I wouldn't know what to do. Obviously, if it was my child, I would definitely obviously take it on. I wouldn't give it up for that reason. So God bless you for that. Yeah, that's an awesome story. But tell me, do you think, by the way, you mentioned this about the overseas thing. Do you think it's because you're on the West Coast and you have that West Coast, so you even have that extra 3 hours that
yes.
you can spare, for lack of a better way to phrase it? Because UK is 5 hours ahead of me, and I'm on the East Coast, and you have 8 hours, so you almost have a whole day.
I have a whole day ahead of them. So, yeah. So it's been I talked to one guy in Spain, another guy in Argentina. So it's
And they want you to call into the States, though, correct?
Yeah. States and Canada. Well, they're saying that they have clients that are starting to come to them now that want to break into the particularly the U.S. market. So they're asking me to partner with them.
So what I know a little bit about you, Jen, you started this business, but it's not just you, right? You started gathering other ladies, and it's kind of a all women cold calling team. Tell me a little bit about how you kind of made that leap and said, wow, I have these clients, I need somebody else. Because it's not just about the clients, it's about being able to relinquish that responsibility to somebody else.
Hard. That was, being a control freak, that's really hard for me. But I did it. I needed to. There's only a certain amount of time in a day that I have. So I had to grow, which is amazing opportunity. I'll backtrack it a little. I found myself, like many others, I got laid off during COVID. So I was bored. So I don't know, randomly reached out to an old Sandler sales trainer of mine. His name is John Glennon. And I just reached out to him. Yeah, he's local.
Oh, that sounds
he's local
familiar
in the Okanagan. So you probably would know. But shout out to John Glennon for Sandler. I reached out to him. I talked to him about, I said, do you remember me? I was a pain in the ass in your training. And I would always just say, does that really work? And he'd say, try it. And so, it was a good experience. So I had a huge conversation with him. And he was branching out to a different location. So he said, well, just cold call for me. So I said, okay, might as well. I have nothing else to do. So I started cold calling for him, and he kept training me. Sandler is you have to ongoing train and practice.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he says, you're really good at this. You need to start your own business. I was like, oh, okay. How? So it just kind of snowballed from there. And since his key clientele is sales managers that are pissed off that no one wants to cold call. That's his clientele. So he just kept sending me referrals. And then all of a sudden I went on LinkedIn. I didn't realize I was doing this. I just started posting and following other salespeople and just commenting on other posts.
Who?
Well, it was Kevin Hall. I saw your one with him. I talked to him actually. Sean Cease was another one. James Thornburg was the one that he was the one that introduced me to Connect and Sell, a dialer. Yeah.
Okay, so let's I'm going to stop you there.
They're all men.
I just want to stop you there because I think that so I too had started slowly into doing my own kind of BDR type thing. I was doing cold calling live in a Discord channel. Somebody saw me, said, I want to hire you, right? So very similar. But it was like when I discovered Connect and Sell. It was like,
Game
what?
changer.
What is this? What is this doing? Is this calling 10 people? Now, I certainly have a different mindset towards the parallel dialer these days because of some other tools that are out there, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, it was so amazing that like just the idea that you could create that volume. Did you feel that like, were you like, where has this been all my life? Was that like probably the first thing that you said?
I know. It was just like, what is this? Like I was, my mind was blown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew Forbes was the one that got me involved with Connect and Sell. And, I used Connect and Sell for quite a while, and, revenue, I had to just build my business. So I stopped using them, but I ended up partnering with Concert.
Sure.
And Victoria Gannon, wonderful lady at Concert. So I partnered with Concert. So I've been using them, but I'm also looking at Connect and Sell and some of the extra features that they have now. Sure. So it's, the dialing system. I just like, why didn't I have this? Like, I remember my sales manager saying, make 100 calls today. And you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to keep doing
but it would take you all day to make those 100 calls.
Yeah.
Right. And so now you could do that 100 dials in like an hour and a half if nobody picks up, or 20 minutes if nobody picks up. But like,
pretty much.
Yeah. So, but talk to me a little bit about like emotionally, because obviously, again, you have this foundation of just wherewithal, fortitude from raising your son with special needs. But when was it this mindset shift to say, I'm going to hire some people? Because now, think about it, right? Regardless of the fact that you have this customer and they have to perform, you also have, now that's your responsibility. Like if you're going to pay them a salary, right? Like, what were you thinking when you went into that? Like, okay, I got to pay salary, workers' comp, insurance, like.
No, they're all subcontractors. So they're not employees. They're subcontractors. It just makes it a lot easier on taxes and all that stuff. So
something to learn right there, absolutely a good way to go. They were willing to take the role on a commission only basis. So that makes.
No, they're not commission based. I don't believe in commission based. They are paid hourly. They're paid on a very good hourly wage. And
okay.
They rock it. They are awesome women. There's 5 women on my team. It got to the point, like I knew I could manage about 4 different clients at the same time. And then all of a sudden last, I don't know, maybe June, July, I just got slammed. Like I had about 12 different companies all at once. And I didn't want to say no. So
was that attributed to like your content, if anything, or what do you?
Yeah, exactly. Like all, I don't have to prospect, which is a good thing. I don't have to prospect for clients. They all seem to come to me either through LinkedIn most times or referrals.
Yeah.
From other people. So it was, it started up, and these women are amazing. They love using the dialer. That is something that they love doing, right? And it just makes it takes away that call reluctancy.
Of
so
course.
Like, do I have
because
to
the reps are there. You can't stop it. Once you're locked. That's the other thing about those tools is like once you're locked in, unless you could stop it, you could pause it, obviously.
Yeah, but you're kind of locked in, and we are all moms, so that's something that we all have in common as well. So we're all moms. We're all doing the whole, get your kids ready to school dance in the morning, so we can all relate to each other, right? So that's part of it. Like we all just kind of, and we have our little gather meetings on Zoom, and we're all in different areas of Canada. So we end up just talking on Zoom, and when I get a particular client, we get the script, and we all practice that script, and each of us have different personalities and different tones.
Of course.
So we kind of compete against each other and say, okay, well, let's do like a round robin for the first week and see who can book the most appointments. And whoever books the most appointments gets that account as their baby.
Gotcha.
It's not all gonna, like, my personality might not match with a certain ICP, right?
Of course.
It depends. So that's why we do that round robin to see who's gonna, and it's fun. We're competing against each other in a friendly manner. Yeah.
So you change accounts between each other for a week, you're saying, like, so one Monday I'll be on one account, Tuesday I'll be on another, and see. Interesting way to figure it out.
And you don't get bored. The thing is that, like, come on, you're repeating yourself over and over again, and it gets boring, and your tone gets low, and you're not as excited as, towards the end of the day, you're just like, oh, I got to say the same thing over and over again.
Sure.
So
that's the greatest.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that's the greatest thing about fractional sales is that you can have multiple accounts, or you're building a company, or you have all these accounts. I've very similar experience. I wanted to just kind of close out this topic though, Sandler and sales, and maybe hopefully this doesn't derail us, but you obviously connected with this guy. He was a Sandler guy. It looks like you might have had some Sandler training in your past. And I bring it up because it's really funny to me when, especially on LinkedIn and the content that you see out there, in some cases, the sales content, is a lot of like, and we've talked about this, I think, offline, you and I, about how people, they just have different words, different names. This industry has acronyms, as this, as that, for all these different things that existed for a long time. And even some of the strategies that people talk about and they rename it. Like I was once on I was saying earlier, I used to do live cold calls on a Discord channel, right? And so, like, I remember one time somebody said to me, and I guess I'm not opposed to saying this live, but they said to me, they after I made a phone call, we debrief about it, right? And so they said something about, hey, when you said this, versus, right after that guy said whatever objection, and they asked me, is that and they said Braun Holland, right? And so Josh Braun and Beck Holland, if you know those two people, they put out a lot of content about sales. Josh is a sales trainer. I think Beck went out on her own and she does consulting as well. But, she made our bones at, I don't remember exactly, Chorus or Gong or something. And then kind of just started doing training and stuff. But like the person said that to me, and it was weird because, I'm 52 years old and I've been in sales for 35 years and I've taken Sandler and 25 years ago, or 30 years ago. And they, and I said to the person when they asked me that, they asked me, is that Braun Holland? Like it was one of their combined effort training strategies, sales strategies or whatever, or sales phrases. And I was like, first of all, Beck Holland happens to be very young, right? So I was like, I think whatever you heard, I probably was saying before Beck was even born,
Probably like
and
Brian
so,
Tracy.
well, essentially, like the Sandler stuff that still transcends to the day. I mean, this guy wrote some stuff back in the '60s, right? It was ironically essential, or just really in the simplest terms, it was based on human psychology, right? And how I mean, he maybe has had a much broader twist on it many years ago. I still hear people, like when somebody does something, like I could pick it out. That's Sandler.
No, you know right away.
That's not Braun Holland. That's not Justin Michael. That's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not those people. Maybe those people have some similar things, because at the end of the day,
Sandler.
It's psychology, the human condition. It's everything that I continue to talk about when it comes to the phone, right? That our goal here, whether you're whatever role you might be in, BDR, even AE, the goal is, even initially when you even set a demo with somebody and the AE starts a conversation, there should be some back and forth, a lot of back and forth before like the AE just rips in. That's usually the discovery. But even on the demo, like if you have a 17-minute discovery and then you book a demo, even on the demo, when the new sales engineer comes in, he should be equipped enough to have a two-way dialogue. At some point, he's going to rip through the platform and show it to you. But a good one will pause, will ask questions, will make sure they understand what he's talking about. Do you have any questions? So on and so forth. To continue that two-way dialogue, even throughout the entire experience in the sales process. But at the beginning of the call, the very first call, right?
Yeah.
The weapon of choice for you, I assume, is the phone.
It's the phone. I know. I get really opinionated when people post about, oh, you gotta send an email, you gotta send me a Loom video, you gotta, send me a LinkedIn request, you gotta do a whole bunch of back end research before you even call me. And I'm like, okay, well, if I do that for every person, and then as we know, a lot of times people don't answer their phones nowadays. So I mean, all that time is wasted. The best thing to do, and I always say this, is pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody. It's not a bad thing. Cold calling is not a bad thing. It's what COVID taught us is that we all crave human interaction. We do. There were so many people got depressed and anxiety and all that stuff when we were all huddled inside. Having a call is not supposed to be this whole big enemy.
Well, let's break it down, okay? Don't you think and regardless of the Sandler clip or plug there, don't you think that part of the reason why it's so feared, it's got such this bad name, not sales, but we call it a cold call.
Yeah.
Now, I love your approach the other day. You say, oh, I'm from Canada. I'm from Canada. It's cold up here, right? I get that. Great. And I remember there was, I'll probably remember later on, but there was like a line I used to chat with this guy, Tyler Tibbetts. He worked for Weed Maps actually at the time up in Canada and Toronto. And he had a comeback to that. I can't remember because he was from Canada and he had some way to turn the cold thing, whatever. Anyways, but we call it a cold call, right? So from day one, 02, we've always put this negative spin on it, right? Also, what else do we talk about when we talk about phone skills? We talk about handling objections.
Yeah.
And it's objection. The word objection is negative.
It's a negative.
It's not objective. It's objection.
I just want to say hi. How's it going? This is what we do. Maybe we can help you. Maybe we can't. Like, let's have a conversation. It's simple.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be.
You present the information. You present some information that they can understand. Mm-hmm. That's why, like, when people, we always talk about this, like when people use really long, big words, well, I'm going to, increase your labor utilization and synchronize your database, back-end database and your network infrastructure. And it's like, dude, do you really talk like that? I mean, if you're talking to the IT guy, maybe, right? Yeah, maybe that makes sense, right? But I always think it's funny when people use a lot of that stuff on the phone. And really, essentially, your first call, as we always talk about, is not to be, getting into the weeds, like it's not your responsibility. I think what happens though, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe us being in the fractional space and being like a sales development agency and, being really only responsible for progressing the calls and or follow-up calls to a meeting, I think sometimes that actually allows maybe us more so than a dedicated BDR inside a company to be so focused on that, because like the BDR there, they should be thinking, right, how to build that flywheel, that follow-up flywheel and so on. And the problem is because this role is so negatively overtoned for so many years, they want to move to AE so quickly, right? And I
was the opposite. I started my cold calling way back in like 1999.
Yeah.
For Y2K. Sure. And I was put into the sales department and I was doing the full sales cycle.
Oh, absolutely.
But what ended up happening is I got lazy. You get lazy. You rely on your same clients, you renew them, you upsell them.
Right.
You become lazy, and I didn't like that. So I was like, okay, I need to do something that, it doesn't allow me to be lazy. So that's why I went back. I went backwards.
Yeah. Look, I totally understand. I spent 10 years at Sherwin-Williams. I changed roles, so my laziness wore off. I started again, so I always like that. And there is something to that, you change a role and you start anew. But I think you're absolutely right. Like what full cycle doesn't allow you to do is really, like usually in those types of roles in other industries, full cycle sales rep will have a certain kind of like quota for getting new business, like net new, versus upsell, cross sell within your existing customer base, or maintain, right? And those businesses, interestingly enough, were so much more complicated, I think, to manage in the sense that, like, you have to imagine, because if you've got 100, 150 customers, you're probably, and let's say your goal is, let's say you did $1 million 1 year, and next year they up your goal 8%, so you got to do 1,080,000, and so, but think about it, you're going to lose 10% of the existing business that you might have, right? Depending if it's transactional, maybe not so much an enterprise, but more transactional. And so now all of a sudden you're thinking, holy crap, I don't got to get 8%, I got to get 15%, right? And how much more can I crush that? And so you can't get so very lazy, but it does pose, because can I make that up in my existing customer base? I won't go after net new, because net new is so much harder. So you avoid the cold calling, you avoid the fresh calls, because you get used to it. So you're absolutely right. There is that syndrome, and it may be something that needs to be at least on the back end of people's minds, as some of these companies now are looking to move towards a more full cycle type of role. I think there's so much to learn from other industries, these tech salespeople that we hop around that, and I always talk about that too, and nobody gets insulted because it's true. They know it's true. It's like you guys didn't invent sales in tech, right? It's Sandler, if anything, and it kind of invented the modern way. But what he did, and this is my whole premise and my coaching, is it's just about human psychology. It's just about starting a two-way dialogue. It's about gathering information. And quite honestly, I feel like, the whole long-term full cycle sales, be it enterprise or otherwise, being an AE, this carries so much more stress than this job, right?
Oh, well, I was able to do it before I had kids. Now I'm just like, no, thank you.
Yeah, because now you're dealing with long cycles. You're dealing with, look, somebody used to ask me, what's the biggest like, how do you overcome rejection, right? Well, what do you mean by rejection? Oh, like when you get hung up on. Oh, it's a blessing to me. I'm like, okay, next, But like they say, now how do you overcome it? And I go, do you think that's rejection? How about going as an AE, going through a 6-month process, multiple proposals, multiple presentations, flying out to freaking meet them, spending money, et cetera, for them to say to you, I'm sorry, we're going with somebody else? That to me, well, other than disappointment, to me is rejection.
I still remember it stung. It was ExxonMobil. I was selling health and safety information to, and they did sign the contract. I did all of that work, signed the contract. They're going to send me a purchase order number. 3 weeks later, the guy left the company, and they had said, nope, we are no longer. And I'm like, he signed the contract.
Wow.
And I was just like, it was like,
that's like a kick in the stomach, right?
It was like a year and a half of, and they're a huge organization. So I had to go, that one was the one that stung.
So those are that's rejection. That's not so much rejection, but like, that's
my fault.
Massive disappointment, like, especially if you got a signed contract. But
contract.
Yeah, I want to ask, I want to get back to the women that you have, and I was thinking to myself, there's, I think I've seen this one time before, but that is really an interesting spin you could put for a sales team of your own. So right now you've got your girls doing BDR work, right, for your clients,
yes.
But as you continue to grow the business and your sales side of it, where you might do outbound, you say a lot of it's coming in organically, and certainly that could be good for the time being, but like, if you ever really want to scale, you're obviously going to produce some kind of outbound motion. And so I was thinking, like, that's the topic you talk about when people say, hey, listen, we're not like every other sales.
Yeah, we're all women.
Well, we're all moms calling moms, whatever you want to call it, change the name, right? It's
well, I'll explain to you how all this came about. Was
please.
I have 4.
That's what I was getting to.
4 ex-sales managers of mine, and they're all women. There's Hallie, Kim, Joyce, and Colleen. Mm-hmm. And I'm still in touch with them. It's been 30 years, and I've been still in touch with them. They were all sales managers of mine at the same company, because I stayed there for 15, 16 years. The company name was Vanguard, sold health and safety information. But Hallie had said to me one time, and I still remember it to this day, is that sales is a transfer of energy. So if you take that and you have to push your energy through the phone, especially when you're in phone sales. And of course, they taught us, hey, you have your little locker mirror beside your, smile and dial. It makes a difference if you're smiling, the whole body language and everything. And those 4 women, again, Colleen, Kim, Joyce, and Hallie, they were huge mentors of mine. Like I just clung to them. I just sucked up everything that I could learn. And they all were so different, but I learned so much from them. So that's why I ended up going, okay, that's it. I only want to have women sales people on my team. And no offense to men, like I should shout out to Brent. He has been, a big rah person. He was also a sales manager of mine. And he's been helping me in the back end, just rah-ing me, which is a great support system. And again, the women that I have, we're all very similar. We all have, we're all moms, we're all women, and we have that, special touch that men unfortunately don't have. And LinkedIn too, like all the people I follow, it just seems like it's dominated of men, like sales trainers, cold callers. It seems to me it's like heavily loaded on men. I hardly ever see a lot of women posting on LinkedIn, which is intriguing to me.
Well, there definitely are. Jen Allen Newth and Samantha McKenna, of course, I'm sure you know those names. And there's definitely others. Please, anybody in the chat, I was just looking through it, has anything to add with respect to what women you guys follow, please share. But I'll tell you, I want to get into this because women versus men in sales, right? Now, I've always been a fan of women in sales. I've hired women. They've always been the best salespeople that I've had. And listen, I'm not afraid to say this, but let's be real. If you're calling into a high, a mostly male type of role or organization, I'm going to say this: they'd rather talk to you than talk to me, right? No. It's just what men are. Men are pigs, right? Sometimes, yeah. Right? And at work, they're not with their wives, so they can think whatever they want, right? And you call them up, and they're thinking, I'd rather be talking to this woman, than a guy. And I'm not saying you don't have talent. There's no one never say that to any woman that they don't have talent. But right from a psychological, because we're talking about psychology here, right? This was the premise before with Sandler. The psychology of a man is more than likely to give a woman a little bit more time. And I'm not saying they'll give you a huge rope, because if you can't deliver a message that makes sense to them, they're not just going to talk to you because you have a pretty face, or a pretty voice, right? And so I know you have to have some something behind it, but it's just an interesting thing, and that should be leveraged. I swear, I don't think there's any shame in leveraging it, right? You don't have to like flirt with the guy, but like you know what I'm saying? Like just having a comfortably nice tone of voice, and your woman's voice, a man's mind runs wild. So it doesn't really matter. They're already figuring out like, what does this girl want? But I'll hear her out for a little bit more than the guy. Now, I do want to touch though on the energy thing before we get into women versus men in sales. Is I grew up on that. Motion creates emotion. Look in the mirror, smile, and dial. I do agree that if you have somewhat of a smile on your face, it can come through. But I think that comes in the conversation and having fun with it, right? That's when the natural smile comes out. Like I can't just go like this and be like, "Hey, John, how you doing?" Right? And I'm sure that you don't do that. You really meant just having a naturally happy tone. A natural happy tone, right? Where I think people get shut down, men and women, okay? And I'll call out Sarah E for this, right? She does a lot of live cold calling, right? And she gets hung up on, and she has great calls too. Don't get me wrong, but when she's had hang up on, she's walking around her apartment, she's really excited. They give her a little bit of rope because she's a girl. but she gets hung up on because of that high tone. I've actually commented there. It's like, you have this really huge uptone. Nobody wants to, I don't care if you're a girl or a guy, nobody wants to talk to somebody who's 100 times more excited about the cold call than they are. It's just, and me who respects cold calls, I don't want to talk to that person. Calm down. I'll tell them to calm down.
But I'd only do that on demos. Like if I was doing, when I was doing full cycles, if I was doing a demo, I would stand up. And I still remember, like, we had cubicles, and like the whole entire sales staff would hush me. And I was so excited. I'm like,
yeah,
you know, like you get excited, right? But yes,
no, it's good to get excited.
It's different.
Yeah, on a cold call,
you got to match that tone of voice of whoever you're talking to.
And I think there's a little bit of a heuristic there, like where you have to sort of almost not, because if they're like dead as a doornail, you don't want to be down there, right? You want to get them awake. You want to get them listening, you know. Again, I posted this the other day. Women have an 11% higher rate than men at closing sales deals. Mm-hmm. That was literally a Google thing or something that kind of came up, and I should have actually footnoted where I got that, but and I will, for those who are watching who saw that, I will try to edit that. But I thought that was interesting, and I didn't think it was unusual. I actually thought probably that was the truth, or maybe even low. What do you think? Do you think men? What do you think the men have struggled with the most that women don't on, let's say, cold call?
It's tone and voice, because like women don't have a very deep voice. I think we're a lot softer in our voices, and women tend to be, especially with being a mom, you have more empathy and patience, and that's that natural empathy that comes out. Not saying that men don't. I'm just saying I think that women just have a higher dosage.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
You're more connected with your emotional side.
Well, I posted about 6 months ago a poll on LinkedIn asking, who do you think is better at cold calling, women or men? And I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but women, people said women over men.
Oh, probably a lot of men said women.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's again, psychology, right? Like you guys, you I don't know. I actually think there's, when I've seen some really good women cold callers, how they take control of the conversation is far different than how maybe a man might take control of the conversation.
It's how it's perceived. It's how it's perceived, right? And then, and again, you keep saying, sales is psychology, and you and I had this conversation about not saying your company name at the beginning of the cold call. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Like you say, as soon as you say your company name, they automatically know that this is a sales call. They're like, oh. You can feel their whole body language shrivel in their chair.
True. Yeah. Well, the key thing there is that somebody said to me yesterday, upon repeating that in another post, was we're required to say our company name.
Yeah, who's required? Yeah, why?
Why? Like, why? So what's weird about it is I get it. All right, that's what your mandate, right, from your senior leaders, talk track, whatever it is. I didn't say never to say your name. No. I say that I've said hundreds of meetings without ever saying my company name. That's just me, right? But 9 times out of 10, I don't start the call with my company name. It does get asked, but if it gets asked after I've had a 3 or 4 minute dialogue with the person, then I'll say it. Like, of course I'll say it, right? Because really actually,
they don't care about the company name.
At that point, they're more like trying to just get more familiar with me. And know, like, before I may even have pitched a time and got the time, and I'm continuing the conversation a little bit. A lot of people get out. We'll talk a little about that in a second, but so I'll use that, and I'll answer it with not even a hesitation. Now, if I go into the call and I don't use it up front, as you know, and then if the name of the company, like if I say, hey, hey Jen, this is Mark from Carrot. How's it going today?
Hi.
Great, Mark. Hey, Jen, you don't know me, but I was calling for a specific reason. Are you still with Cold Calling Unlimited?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay,
I'm actually
great.
the CEO.
Excellent. Now, if all of a sudden they say, where are you calling from? I might get it right there. Not a lot of times, but I'll get it there. And I'll be like, well, you probably don't know, but what I do is I actually work with clients just like you, customers just like you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right?
Yes.
Now, I didn't answer the question because, right, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
But what
matter.
they're trying to do is maybe at that point they're trying to figure out, do I know you? Or do I know your company? What's the difference if you know my company or not?
Doesn't
Right?
matter.
Because what happens is if they do know your company in a bad way, that's trouble. Right?
Yes.
If they and there's ways around that too, of course. But if they don't know your company, where are you? You're right back to where you start. Like, what's the point of telling them? Like, I almost want to ask the person sometimes, like, what's the difference?
Well, I do. I've had some people. I've had actually some people actually typing it into their Google while I'm on the phone.
Definitely do not want that happening. Absolutely
like,
not.
Me, you're not paying attention to me. I need
Exactly.
you to listen to me. You can
Exactly.
look at our website after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What is a website? Right?
Yeah.
A website is designed for the masses, right? Now, unless of course your business is really niche, then it's not, right? But like, I have never gone to a website, and I've been in a buying position in some cases. Never gone to a website and went, oh my God, I have to have this.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't happen, right? Nobody ever does that. What happens when people go to your website, and anybody can challenge me on this, right? What happens when somebody goes to your website, 9, maybe 8 times out of 10, is they're looking for something very specific, and they don't see it. And then guess what? Or they see something there that's not necessarily applicable to them, and it might be very much in the fore on the site, and they go, this isn't for me. And they don't go any further because they want to see it right in the front page, right? Whatever. And so what you might have to offer that's of interest to them could be pages in somewhere they don't see it, or it may not be something that's actually illustrated on your website because your website was often designed for maybe a larger total addressable market, right? And it's designed in a way to highlight certain features versus other features that could potentially be applicable and value to the prospect. So sending them to your website is like death.
Yeah, no, I'm like, no, please. Yeah.
Right. So
now, have a conversation with you.
Exactly. Send me some information. Yeah, I could certainly do that. But tell me, and this new thing that I can't stand is I've tried it too. Tell me what you want me to send you, dude. I want you to send me, an overview of what you guys do. Okay, how's that? Is that going to pretend? I don't know. I'm sure if that helps you understand that I could help you specifically, but like who could ever really like none of those things work. So it's like, yeah, I could send you some information, not a problem. Take their email, and then I say, well, let me ask you this, and I get into something else and I get deeper into it. Or I'll say, let's do this. It sounds like you want me to send you some information. Why don't we do this? Why don't we reconnect at a time that's a bit more convenient? How's Tuesday at 3? I'll send you some information.
That's what I do. I don't even let them say send me info or send me an email. I don't even say it because I can tell. Like, you can feel on the phone they're busy. You already know you interrupted their day. So I'll even call it out. Say, look, you know what? I know you're busy. I know I called you out of the blue. It sounds like we might be a match to you. I'll send you info. When's a better time to give you a call back so we can go over this, a little bit more in detail where I'm not, just throwing that out there at you.
Yeah, when you're expecting my call.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's
a natural, it's natural. And they'll say, oh, just send me an email. Just say, okay, yeah, no problem. I will send you an email. But you know what? Here's our website address. And then back again. When's a good time to follow up with you? When should I call you back? Just being respectful of people's time. You know that they're busy.
Well, so So, I mean, yeah. So send me some information. Obviously, that comes. It depends on when that comes in the call and how you might react to it, right? Because even at the end of the day, like after you have that, what I was getting at is like when you have that longer conversation, you get into. You're absolutely right. I don't let them get to the send me some information, but usually if it comes early, it's not an objection. It's just they don't have enough time to. So again, here's the psychology, right? Fight or flight, right? That's why is this a sales call, which is post is kind of blown up for me a little
I
bit, which
know, I
I
saw
didn't
that.
expect. Didn't expect that. But like, it's not no, and it's not yes. It's the fact that you have to recognize why that person's saying that, right? And person who actually asks, "Is this a sales call?" I'm sorry, but they're an idiot, right? Because you don't know who I am, right? Especially, and if they're asking you, like if you say your company name, let's just say you happen to say your company name up front, you're from a company they never heard of or don't know. What else do you think this is for? Right? I'm not trying to sell you right now, sure, granted, but they don't believe that. It's a fight or flight reaction. It's like a sales call. That means I got to make a decision, and I don't want to make a decision right now because I'm totally focused on something else, right? So, is this a sales call? It's an angry and negative, quote unquote, objection, right? It's a real objection.
Phone number. How'd you get my number? It's a thing called Google.
Yeah, like people gotta recognize that those questions that seem like hard to overcome, they're not meant to be overcome. Those people are not being legit, right? Look, granted, I believe that real decision makers extremely value their time, right? But they also value spending their time with people who potentially can solve their problems, right? So even in a senior person, a decision maker that you may want to get in the phone, which always have to be the first one on the phone, but I can often tell when you land a meeting very easily with a decision maker that particular person probably doesn't value their time, and they're probably not the real decision maker in that equation, and or they're a tire kicker. They're the people who like to take meetings because they feel like they're going to, but they never pull the trigger because they don't value their time. If they valued their time, they probably wouldn't take the meeting. They'd ask for the information up front. They would ask for a referral, things like that.
They get really hard for you.
And so, well, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about like different kinds of ICPs, right? I personally believe that people describe ICPs in the sense of, maybe there's a lot of different categories for the ICP. What creates the ICP? The size of the company, so on and so forth. Maybe what their tech is. Maybe the role. You drill it down all the way to the person. Et cetera, et cetera. And so, but there's not a lot of talk about ICPs in the sense of their personality or persona. What do I mean? So when I listen to some sales call or some cold calls, some of my team, and what we talk about a little bit is like, let's say they get the meeting really easily, and we talk about this scenario, right? Where why did it come so easy? Well, that person wasn't a type A personality, wasn't an owner, wasn't a A-lister, if you will, right? Maybe I think that if you got that meeting with that director of operations, but if it was the COO, you may not have, based on the things that you said and how you led that call, right? So how do you deal with that over? And so there's that kind of persona ICP, and then there's the positions, right? Like the worst ICPs. Like I don't like calling into legal. I saw you post something about having a new client that calls it the legal. I hate lawyers. I would never call into legal or lawyers.
It just surprises me. Like they all send me the voicemail. Like it's like, okay, how do you guys get business if you don't actually have a conversation with people? And they what do you think about? They don't know that I'm not a client.
What do you think it is about them? What do you think it is about legal? That's why they don't answer the phone.
I think that they're so busy that they probably have their phone on do not disturb, and they pick and choose. They listen to their voicemails at a certain time in the day, and then they prioritize. That's my guess. Mm-hmm. It's just a guess. Now, if anybody out there has any sort of feedback, it just seems that it's 90% push to voicemail, and it's not even. I'm not even talking to a gatekeeper. It's just the voicemail comes on automatically.
So how do you go after them? You know?
That's what I'm asking. That's why I put on LinkedIn. Like, is it
Sure.
what else? How else can you get? Like, I mean, of course, you know, you can LinkedIn, you can email them, but I'm asking, is cold calling dead in legal and law offices? I don't want to talk myself out of a job. It's just that it
Sure.
doesn't.
Well,
I'm asking for help.
yeah, so that's great. No, that's great to do that, and hopefully somebody here who's listening or maybe listening afterwards can help you. But I'm curious, like, what else do you think? What other ICPs have you had?
Restaurants.
Maybe restaurants.
Do not
Really?
that is not, because what ends up happening is you call into a restaurant, they'll say, okay, the owner's in at 5 p.m. because the owner comes in when it's the busy time. Well, the owner's not going to take a cold call at the busiest time of the restaurant, and that's it's
so I agree. I will say this: I currently have a campaign running where we're calling into franchise QSRs, quick service restaurant, and what I find is well, they're bigger than these particular ones that happen to be very big. So like the owner's never there, but the GM or the director of operations that I could talk to always after 4 or 5 o'clock, right? And you know what the problem is for me? I'm on the East Coast, so I can't I could do the West Coast stores, and there's a lot of opportunity there, and I have been, but I'm like, after this right now, I could start calling for them because it's only 4 o'clock there, and that's when they come in.
Yes.
4 or 5 o'clock. So it is very difficult. Restaurants, although there is a different avenue with restaurants, right? Restaurant owners, franchise owners, and or other restaurant owners belong to a lot of associations and franchise associations, and they have trade shows up the wazoo, and they're always at other trade shows. And
it's best to call them on if you can get their cell phone number. That's.
You know what's interesting?
A restaurant, but
if you can get that information from an employee. Now, what was interesting is, like, also I had a challenge with grocery, right? The grocery business, right? But what was crazy about that business, like right now I call in a franchise business, you call in, they have a mandate. They don't give you any information about anybody. Unless you know the owner, they won't even give you the owner's name or the franchise name. They won't even give you the district manager's name. At best, they'll put you on the phone with the manager, which then starts you again, and they'll probably tell you they can't give you anything. You have to give them an email, right? In the stores, in the grocery stores, when I had that campaign, it was grassroots, calling the main number, no cells, right? You call the main number of the store, and you can literally say, is the owner there? Oh, he's not there. Who is it? And it could be a 16-year-old kid, and they will give you that guy's or that person's name. They will give you his phone number. They will give you his social security number. No, I'm just kidding. They literally will give you that information. What's the difference? Like grocery, retail. My biggest challenge, I think one of the worst ICPs to have is anything like restaurants or retail. Why? Because maybe restaurants are a little bit different. QSR is really hard. The data is not there. Companies like Zoom Info, Seamless, Lucia, Apollo, nobody has the data for grocery stores, and nobody has the data for like things like Domino's or Pizza Hut or whatever. All
those list providers, I am so frustrated because they charge so much money. We have so much technology nowadays that there is no excuse why these list providers, their lists are crap.
Yeah, their lists are crap. And I'll tell you why, okay? For the listeners, for you, this is the main reason. Owners of restaurants, which are oftentimes like more of a real estate type of professional, right? Chances are, especially with restaurants that pass from generation to generation, these people, like in retail, like in grocery, in franchise operations, this is what I've learned. They started in those businesses right out of high school or right out of college, or they're the children of those particular owners.
Yeah.
And they've never had a reason to be really that involved in social media, let alone LinkedIn, which is really where a lot of the data comes from. So they've never used LinkedIn as a way to get a job right? Which is what most people used LinkedIn for a long time ago. And they never had multiple signatures. Like they didn't work for different companies, but they had multiple signatures that might be on email or somewhere on the internet and is public, and it could be pulled down because that's where they get that information, right? And so that's why those particular data sources lack the information on those ownerships, because the data just doesn't exist, right? Now, you have to call direct, you have to call into the store, you have to finagle your way in, and it's old school. And honestly, with all, I agree with you, with all the technology that we have, it frustrates me that I got to do it. Now, to each his own, right? I think, for me and my team and my clients, I am eliminating that from my clientele, to be honest with you, right? Like I don't want to take on clients that don't have the data, like just where there's no data anymore, right? Because
I agree. I don't like, I mean, I can create a list for you, but I always tell people, you're the one that knows your ICP better than I do. You want me to call, then you give me all of that info.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a strategy in mind, and let's go. Let's
What's been your most successful ICP? What's been your most successful campaign? And do you have a success story behind it?
There's two of them. SAS is always seems to be the big one out there.
Sure.
I called for cannabis retail stores in Canada for a POS system.
Oh, like Weed Maps, and what's the other one that's like the most popular?
There's Koga, Green Line.
Yeah. There's a couple of others, right? That's awesome. Yeah. That's a very. I mean, of course, in the proliferation of cannabis becoming legal and all over the place, it must have been a really fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We call it stoners all day long. It's kind of fun.
Well, the owners, let's back up a second, because I've noticed a lot of the owners. Well, if you're calling director of operations, whatever, they probably are, right? But sometimes the owners, there's a lot of owners that have never even partook in the drug. They're lawyers. Yeah. They're just investors.
Exactly.
I've even come across doctors who have now quit their practice and now they owned cannabis stores, because they were holistic practitioners or whatever. So you'd be surprised, they're not always like that, but they're definitely much more laid back, right?
They're laid back, and it is a lot easier to talk to them than calling into HR departments is not the best.
Oh, you don't like HR? Oh, I love HR. All right,
Sorry.
Well, let's talk about that a second, right? Because there's a lot of technology that supports the HR function, right? And all different levels, different departments within HR, depending on how big the company is. I think that just the challenge with HR, and I guarantee you probably get a pretty interesting dichotomy of people in that there are probably HR people who actually, if they get a good cold call, a good sales call, they may actually listen to you, because they do have a lot of challenges over and above a lot of the other departments. But they're not often seen as a profit center, which is odd, because they're bringing in new employees that carry with them a certain revenue just by being there. So it's weird, but they're seen as that, right? And so they're always defensive. And the other thing is they're always probably, we're actually making it worse on HR people in a sense, right? Because we've been telling people online that if they're looking for a BDR job or an AE job, they should cold call the BDR manager or the HR manager or whoever's doing it. And now, they're getting all these shitty calls from all these candidates. It's making it even worse, right? But that's the problem, is that their name, the reason why they get the most calls of anybody is because their information is absolutely extremely updated online, because they have to be public, because they have to have connections with the candidate pool out there. And so by default, HR gets the most amount of calls probably. And for that matter, have developed maybe more of a pushback because of it. I think that might be the case. And sales managers too. I think. I don't know. I don't know.
I love when a sales manager says, "I don't take cold calls." You're like, really?
I wish somebody would post that and just say, "I don't take bad cold calls."
I don't take bad cold calls.
First touch calls. So, talk to me about, besides your amazing energy and laughter, because I love somebody who laughs after everything they say. Is really funny because I do that, and my brothers, like, I'll tell a joke to my brothers,
Yeah.
and before I even finish the joke, I'm already laughing, and they're like, "What are you like? You laughing at your own joke before you even finish it?" And I'm like, yeah, that's
Being a
kind of what
happy
I do.
person.
That's just what I do. I'm just happy about it. I think it's funny. But no, I've had many people on the show who talk about different things they eat in the middle of the week to get them really rocking and rolling, exercise,
Mhm.
breathing exercises, whatever it is, motivation, belief. My good friend Shane Mahi last week, he said, I just believe in myself. I believe that's where, like, I believe that I can be successful every day, every week, every month, every year. I just keep pushing myself towards it. What gets Jen Frost really over the hump and through the week?
I have a very unusual answer. I bet you no one has ever answered this before.
No, please.
Because I'm hyper, right? I'm hyper, I'm energetic, all that. And it takes a toll eventually. So
Do you crash?
yeah, you crash. So, and my mind's always going, like really going fast. So in order just to slow my brain down, to chill out, Zen, is I do jigsaw puzzles. I'm addicted to jigsaw puzzles. I even bought one of those like Lazy Susan tables that you can spin.
Sure.
Yeah,
Got a little lip on it, and you can have like all the pieces in there.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, so it just it gets me to like just zen out, like concentrate and focus on the puzzle. Just my mind just not overthinking all this stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. You would be surprised to know, or maybe not, and I'm not just saying this, might sound like I'm saying you just related something that's very near and dear to me and my family. Right above me is probably a 300-piece puzzle of VW bugs of all different hippie colors and a dog. Over here is another puzzle of a building called Groovy Records, and it has the record labels of all the records on the face. That's about a 650 poster. Right over there behind me is a very long one, and that's Seattle, right? And that's just 3 in my office. I have about 14 more throughout the rest of the house, and I have 20 that are actually not even framed downstairs, stacked up on top of each other, because we used to do puzzles all the time. And I'm gonna throw this out at you. The reason I at one point I went into my own business before I was doing this cold calling thing. Had my own business, which morphed into like a contracting business. Also, I used to work for a company called Impro.
Okay.
What they sold was handrails and cubicle curtains, like for hospitals, and signage for hospitals, and wall protection for corners and things like that, corner guards and whatever. And then they even sold chairs, like lazy healthcare chairs and stuff like that. And so I did a lot of healthcare work, and I got really embedded in that market here. And then I got let go. I got fired in 2015, late 2015, and I had to work. I just had a kid in 2015, and I had to go back to work. So I literally went back to all my customers, and I started reselling Impro's product. But now I can offer the installation, which I can make a lot more money on, right?
Mm.
And so what happened is that I didn't, in an effort to like kind of grow that business, it was weird because like oh my God, I just lost my train of thought. I hate that when I go off on tangents.
You were talking about puzzles.
So what I was, no, I remember. So the two things that I used to do, like when I run that contracting business, I used to do painting, I used to do installations. And one time I took a job to do a paint job, right, at one of my clients. And one of my sales community friends from the internet who knew I do coaching and things like that too, they called me up on like a Saturday evening for some reason, right? And I was chatting with him. I just took a break from painting. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You're painting?" He's like, "Why would you do that?" And he's like, "Don't you make so much more money in sales and SaaS sales or whatever?" And I said, "Yeah, but you know what it is? I did that work it was good money. Don't get me wrong. I actually got paid a lot of money to do it, right? Especially if I did it myself and I didn't hire other people to do it. Or when I did, I had other people. When I did it myself, it was like all profit, right? And so, and it was on the weekend. So what do I care, right? I did a Saturday and Sunday paint job and I made $2,500. I'll do that all every weekend, And so, like, what is that compared to the 100,000 plus I make now? No, it's not. But the reason why I did that work was because there was always a before and after, right? You walk in, it's not painted, right? You do the job, it's painted, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy, they love it, they transform their house, they transform the space, whatever it is, commercial space that I did. And there's an end. There's like an end and I get paid, I get a check, whatever it was. And so with sales, and this is where my question is, like with sales, it never ends. You're always having to do more and more and more and more. And the same like with a puzzle, like we did puzzles also. And the reason why I did those, this was before I even did a lot of the business. When I was doing the business thing, I wasn't even doing a lot of puzzles. And then when 2020 hit, we started doing more puzzles.
Exactly.
But the puzzle thing is the same concept. The reason why it's cathartic, right? People say, oh, painting is cathartic. Well, no, yes, but it was more like I had a before and an after, an end. It was a beginning and an end. And puzzles are the exact same thing. You start the puzzle with nothing. You get it to, and then once you put that last piece in, the satisfaction of that being done. Now,
last piece.
Are we satisfied when the client's happy or closes a deal on one of the meetings we said? Absolutely. But you got to get more, right? There's no end to it, right? And so that's what I always equate doing puzzles and doing painting and doing those things too. So
it's the opposite, like you said, like doing jigsaw puzzles versus doing cold calling. Like there's never an end on cold calling. And
so I'm so glad you said puzzles. I love it.
Roller coaster ride. Like it's that thrill of the chase of you don't know when you're going to get it, but when you get it, it's that high that you get when doing a cold call. And then, like you said, with the puzzles, it's that high you get when you put that last piece of puzzle in that puzzle. You're like, oh, I'm done.
Oh, me and my wife, like we sometimes like hide that piece. Like,
I know my daughter does that.
So listen, this was awesome. I really, I love how Jessie says all kinds of ICPs. Like, I don't know if she was answering like which are the worst ICPs. She's like,
they're all terrible.
I want to thank Jessie Lezak. She's got her show tonight. I don't know unless she had an afternoon show. So check out Whiskey Wednesday or Wednesday by Reveting. Phil Zanotti, thanks for showing up. Olivia Wainhouse. She is going to be on my show in a couple of weeks. She's going to be episode 17 on the what's today, the 5th and 14th and 19th. Olivia Wainhouse, I don't know if you've seen her. She's another woman in sales, bubbly BDR. Used to be with Nooks. She's the one posting a lot of pictures of really awesome looking cars. And why the heck are they all over the place in Florida? Well, you live in West Palm Beach. I mean, that's what's there, or Miami. I don't know where she lives. But we're going to chat with her next in 2 weeks. And in 3 weeks at the end of the month, I've got another amazing woman in sales, Celeste Burke-Neasley. I don't know if you've seen her content recently, but she's a super gal. She's going to be an amazing show because I took a class with her where she was afraid to do videos and posts and stuff like that. She was so caught up in her own mind about it. And then she just got this release. We worked with Chris Bogue, and she's become an amazing content creator since. And I can't wait to have her on the show, another woman in sales. So all month, women in sales. Thank you, Jen, really, for sharing your story, your personal story. I really appreciate it. Can you tell the audience where to find you other than coldcallingunlimited.com?
Yeah, I'm typically on LinkedIn. I am very opinionated, so I got all my posts and comments on LinkedIn. So that's mostly where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, Jen, listen, best of everything for Cold Calling Unlimited for the girls. If you guys don't want to sit on Zoom but want to sit in a Blitz room, on Call Blitz, check out Call Blitz. I'm going to be working inside of Call Blitz and a community called the No Fluff community soon as a cold calling coach. So check that out if you like. You'll be able to see me live again. I've been looking for a place to do that stuff live again, and Ryan Reiser, who started the community and started this initiative to to have coaches like Peloton coaches on Call Blitz is an amazing idea. I'm going to have a link for everybody to join in the next week or so. And you can find me live there probably 2-3 times a week for an hour or two, doing my thing. Yeah, thanks again for joining us. And I appreciate you being the first woman in sales on my show this month. So God bless. And everybody else who's listening or will listen to this on the replay, thanks for joining us. You can find us here again next week, Wednesday, 5:30. And this is the Hump, and we're out. Peace.
Thanks. Bye.